The old man bought a birthday cake for someone who was gone. It was a quiet Saturday morning. The small bakery on Maple Street had just opened. The smell of fresh bread and coffee filled the air. At exactly 8 o'clock, an elderly man walked inside. He looked about 76 years old. He wore an old brown jacket and carried a small bouquet of white flowers. The young woman behind the counter smiled. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" The man looked at the cakes for a long moment. Then he said softly, "One chocolate cake, please." "Of course. What would you like written on it?" The old man smiled. His eyes became warm. "Happy birthday, Sarah." The woman wrote the words carefully. Then she looked up. "Will your wife like it?" For a second, the man didn't answer. Finally, he whispered, "I hope so." A few minutes later, he left the bakery carrying the cake. He stopped at a coffee shop. "2 coffees, please." The cashier looked confused. "You have company today?" The old man smiled. "In a way." He took both cups and continued walking. Then he bought a single candle. 1 candle. Not 70, not 76. Just one, because every year he made the same wish. His name was Thomas, and Sarah had been the love of his life. They met when they were both 19. She was studying to become a teacher. He worked at a gas station. One rainy evening, she came to buy gasoline. Her car wouldn't start. Thomas fixed it. She thanked him by buying him a cup of coffee. They talked for 3 hours. 3 months later, they were dating. 1 year later, they got married. They were never rich. They never traveled the world. They never owned a big house. But they had something many people never find. They had each other. Sarah loved birthdays. Every year she baked her own chocolate cake. She always said, "The cake isn't important. Being together is." Every birthday, she made 2 wishes. One for herself, one for Thomas. And every year she laughed when she blew out the candles. Her laugh filled the whole house. Thomas used to think it would last forever, but life has other plans. 5 years ago, Sarah became ill. At first, she only felt tired. Then she became weaker. Then came the hospital visits. The doctors tried everything. Thomas stayed beside her every day. He held her hand. He read books to her. He brought flowers. He told jokes. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she cried. One evening, she looked at him and said, "When my birthday comes, don't be sad." Thomas shook his head. "Don't say that." But Sarah smiled. "Promise me something. Anything. Celebrate my birthday every year." He looked at her in confusion. She squeezed his hand. "Buy a cake. Buy coffee. Talk to me." Tears filled his eyes. "Sarah," she smiled, "love doesn't disappear just because someone leaves." A week later, she was gone. Since then, every birthday has been the same. A cake, 2 cups of coffee, 1 candle, white flowers, and a conversation with the woman he still loved. That morning, Thomas walked slowly to the city park. There was a small bench beside a pond. It had been Sarah's favorite place. They used to sit there every Sunday. He placed the cake on the bench, then the flowers, then the 2 cups of coffee. He lit the candle. For several minutes, he said nothing. Finally, he smiled. "Happy birthday, Sarah." The wind gently moved the trees. He looked at the empty space beside him. "I bought your favorite cake." Silence. "I miss your laugh." Silence. "I still talk to you every day." His voice began to shake. "I'm trying my best." A tear rolled down his face. "I hope I'm making you proud." At that moment, someone spoke. "Excuse me." Thomas turned. A little girl stood nearby. She looked about 10 years old. She carried a backpack covered in stickers. She pointed at the cake. "Is it someone's birthday?" Thomas smiled. "Yes." "Where is the birthday person?" He looked at the empty place beside him, then back at the girl. "It's my wife's birthday." The little girl looked around. "I don't see her." Thomas took a deep breath. "She's not here anymore." The girl became quiet. "My grandma died last year." Thomas nodded. "I'm sorry." She sat beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then she asked, "Do you still celebrate with her?" He smiled. "Every year." "Why?" Thomas looked at the candle. Because the answer was simple. Because love doesn't end. The little girl thought about his words. Then she opened her backpack. She took out a piece of paper and some crayons. For several minutes, she drew something. Finally, she handed him the paper. On it were two people sitting on a bench under the sun. Both were smiling. Above them she had written, "Love stays." Thomas looked at the drawing. His hands trembled. "Did you make this for me?" She nodded. "And for your wife." He couldn't speak. His eyes filled with tears. The little girl smiled. She shouldn't celebrate alone. Thomas covered his face. For 5 years, he had celebrated in silence, and now a complete stranger understood his pain. The girl pointed at the candle. "Can I help?" Thomas smiled through his tears. "I think Sarah would like that." They both leaned forward. Together they blew out the candle. The little girl laughed, and for the first time in 5 years, Thomas laughed too. They shared the chocolate cake. They drank the coffee. They talked about Sarah, about birthdays, about memories, about people we never stopped loving. As the sun slowly began to set, the little girl stood up. She put on her backpack. Then she hugged him. "Happy birthday to your wife." Thomas smiled. "Thank you." She walked away, then suddenly turned around. "See you next year?" Thomas looked at the drawing in his hands, then at the empty place beside him, and for some reason, it didn't feel empty anymore. He smiled. "I'll be here." As evening arrived, he sat alone on the bench. The flowers rested beside him. The empty coffee cup stood nearby, and in his hands was a child's drawing. "Love stays." Thomas looked at the sky. Then he whispered, "Happy birthday, Sarah." A gentle breeze touched his face, and for the first time since she had gone, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Because sometimes strangers remind us of something important. The people we love never truly leave us. As long as we remember them, as long as we speak their names, as long as we keep a place for them in our hearts, love stays.